Hi, everyone. Welcome to Evolving Women. I'm Teresa Lysam, and I'm here today with my amazing guest co-host, Marelda Rodriguez. Hi, Marelda.
Hi.
Welcome,
Hi,
welcome.
Teresa. Hi, everyone.
So glad to have you here. I
Thank
kind of
you.
I kind of want to start with this because I just saw this recently and it's just intriguing. I want to see your thoughts on it. I recently saw a post that said anything before 40 was just research. Like
Yeah.
it's like boom. Like I just love that perspective. If we all had that perspective, maybe those of us that have moved farther along and got past 50, got past 60, wherever we fall in that range, look at it like that. That could really be helpful. What do you think?
I agree. I agree. I look back at my own years before 40, and I would say well into my 50s now that it is so true. And I think what comes to me is if we thought of it that way, we would give ourselves so much more grace
Oh, yes. Yes.
in our midlife to later years, when the true transitions and the longest life stage for many women, the longest life stage happens.
And we're out of survival mode, I think. Like that when I was a young mom and, going through the whole family experience and managing a household and kids, I always felt I was in survival mode. And I see that of my own daughter with my grandkids, like just trying to keep her head above water. And I'm like glad I'm past that, and it's, oh, I just love this whole idea that we move through these phases. We're not washed up. We're not too old. We're not anything. We're getting to the best part, actually. Once you pass, I find that every woman I speak with, there is a time in her life, whatever age that might be, where yeah, she passes that point where like, okay, I'm done. I'm glad that's done. Now, like this whole new chapter is open for me. I have all these options. Hold on and let's go.
I think so. I have a couple of different thoughts around that. It depends on, in my experience in working with the women I work with, which is women in midlife, which is 40,
Mm-hmm.
60 range-ish.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not to say that my inner circle or my friend circle doesn't extend beyond that age group. Um, and some of my clients from my massage world are in their late 70s, early
Mm-hmm.
80s, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I
Uh,
get the panoramic view, which I
yes, you
love.
do.
I do love that. Now, what I have noticed is while there is an entry into midlife that is 1 foot in survival mode, the thing about the transition of menopause is it demands your full attention. So you can't keep your 1 foot in survival mode. It's going to force some decisions on you. And that's where it's going to force you to be in grace. It's going to force you to be in
Mm-hmm.
acceptance. It's going to force you to be in more of a letting go space where
Mm-hmm.
there's only so much you can have on your plate, and survival takes up a
Mm-hmm.
lot of energy, and menopause is a bigger energy. It's a I am staying, I am putting my elbows out, I am here for the rest of your life. And for the women that come into the I say I some of the examples I use with my clients is I tell them it's like coming into, you've seen the big party, you're standing outside the ballroom door in your beautiful outfit that you think is just so perfect for this ball, and the doors open and you are wrongly dressed for the ball.
Oh, man.
And you are wrongly dressed, so you come in and you're like, oh, So it's not that you're underdressed or overdressed, you're just incorrectly dressed
Mm-hmm.
for the ball. And so now you have to figure out how to make things happen. So you're going to have some acceptance with, you know what? This is what I wore. I'm going to have a good time. Right. So it's that um, transition that is what menopause brings to the table. And so the women coming in when they're in their survival mode have to learn very quickly how to release that and move into a little more of a graceful, unapologetic mode,
Mm.
acceptance mode. And so I think the first couple of years, perimenopause is bumpy in and of itself from a biological transition, right? So it's already bumpy. And then if you're going to sit there and hang on to your survival mode outfit,
Mm.
it is not going to work in the menopause ballroom. And so the sooner you start to say, you know what, I'm just going to make the most of what I have, it starts to become a more aligned, streamlined journey.
Mm. Wow. I love the ballroom analogy. That is brilliant. And I really appreciate you saying, give ourselves grace, be in acceptance, realize it's a letting go. Because I think society in this country tells us otherwise.
Yes. So my world happens in two parts of the world. It happens in the Western Hemisphere and it happens in the Eastern Hemisphere. So I
Hmm.
absolutely do get to see and live the Western expectations and the Eastern expectations. And when you go into the Eastern Hemisphere, especially in countries that are located in the African continent, the Asian continent, the cultures are a little more um, agreeable to aging. Like it's considered
Mm.
a space you've earned,
Mm.
a wisdom you've experienced and can speak from. Whereas in the West, it's more how can I keep and hang on to
Yes.
my
Yes.
youth? And,
Hmm.
and youth is given that weight. Uh,
Yeah.
so everybody's rushing to still be young instead of
Hmm.
embracing the earned wisdom and place at the table.
Mm.
And I think it's a very, I am extremely grateful. I get to sit right in the middle and look to the left and the right and see two different happenings because it helps me sharpen my messages and it helps me relate to my clients a little better. And it especially helps me relate to women that are like me, who may be child free, who are digital nomads, who live in multiple locations and have similar experiences and are of various age groups. Um, I will tell you, though, what I find really, really uplifting is the word I want to use, is when I have these days, when I'm in the US and I am in a massage environment and I get young ladies who are just 30, like, they're just kind of coming into their own with their careers and their lives and their friendship circle,
Hmm.
their dating lives and all the things.
Hmm.
And they come in for a massage and they want to know how to take care of their body. They want to see to the future a little bit. And they are not necessarily saying, um, tell me how to have a baby or what should I do if I'm in a um, on the path of becoming a mom. They just want to know for themselves. So they're not like saying, oh, for my marriage or for my children or for my whatever. They're
Hmm.
saying, how do I have good years just on my own going forward? And it is just so refreshing. The first time I had someone like that, I was very surprised in a great way. And now I'm seeing a trend of these younger women coming in asking questions that I don't think I've even heard from women my age or, you know, or even older. They're still like trying to figure it out. They're trying,
Mm-hmm,
they're
mm-hmm.
kind of like two steps forward, five steps back, three more forward, two sideways. Oh, let me get back on track. And
Mm-hmm.
it's
Oh
all
yeah.
it's all good. I'm just saying that the ones in their 30s right now are going to have a far more streamlined journey.
Mm. Wow. I love hearing that. Good for them. And I so appreciate that you have those two perspectives to share with those young women. Like I said, you can see both or different cultures. And can you just tell our viewers and our listeners what that other culture is that you get to spend some time in?
Yes. So my heritage is Indian. I was born and
Mhm.
raised in Kuwait. So I have a Middle Eastern Indian influence. I am what they call a third culture kid. So
Mhm.
third culture kid is my parents are Indian. So they were living in Kuwait. I was born in Kuwait, but I am an Indian citizen because if you're born in Middle East, you get the citizenship of your parents by descent,
Okay.
not the country you're born in. Um, so how we move in the world with the two cultures is what makes people like me a third culture kid.
Okay.
I
Thank
don't operate in one exclusively or the other. I
you.
operate in a blended fashion. And
Mm.
so coming to the US when I was ready for college, and the number of years I have spent in this culture still puts me in a third culture because now I blend three cultures to move into the world. And so, it applies to pretty much everything I do, how I prepare my meals,
Mm.
how I dress, how I relate to people, communicate. So yeah, there's a lot of culture blends, and I love that.
I would say a lot of advantages, it sounds like a
Yeah.
lot of advantages. And you are able to pull from both and give your clients the best, whatever they happen to need from either group. Whereas I can only give from my US based, life experience. So anybody who does connect with you are so lucky because like I said, you bring in both of those perspectives or multiple perspectives. And I love that you said that those in the Eastern Hemisphere are more agreeable to aging.
Well,
Like, what a beautiful thing.
yes. Now, I want to be real. They do have their share of complaining, but it's more to have conversation. If you look at the culture standing back a little bit, you'll see pretty much Asian cultures. And it doesn't matter where you are, the older you get. Like, for example, I was traveling in the trains in India with my uncle, who is elderly, and the number of people that literally jumped up from their chairs.
Mm,
And there are signs, that say priority for the elderly or
mm.
people with disabilities. And I remember, someone pointing to a sign. So not necessarily my uncle's situation, but someone elderly wanted to sit and, they will police each other to
Oh, that's neat.
to pay attention to the signs for the elderly. So it's just one small example. They will have the elderly sit down, or if you're traveling with someone who's older, they'll make sure that they're comfortable. They will, if there's a situation like, for example, in an airport and the flight's getting ready or whatever, they're a little more gracious with the elderly,
Hmm.
and the time they need. So yeah, it's nice to see.
Yeah, I love that. I want to bring more of that to this country. I think that would be delightful. I mean, there's wonderful people everywhere, you
For
know.
sure. For sure.
And but to just know that the cultural thinking is in that direction, like just one of wisdom and like you said, earned wisdom and life experience and to honor that and respect that. Whereas the US is just so youth oriented. which
I do.
sounds like it's doing a good job since you have young people coming to you with, like a broader perspective than I might have had at that age.
I also think, what we don't talk about in this country is we actually do have that in the US, in the Native American communities.
Mm,
Because in
mm.
Native American communities, they do have actual elders and they call them
Yeah,
elders
yes,
for a
yes,
reason.
yes.
And so I feel now, when you go to the Southwest and you look at the cultures there, or you look at any Native American areas, they still will have a
Hmm.
rituals that honor their elders and ancestors and things like that. So they're kept alive every single day. They're not an afterthought or a
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah.
thought. It's very much woven into the everyday, how they move in their culture.
Hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, so it is there to an extent.
You're right. And unless, like, I do have that privilege where I live now that there I see that around here, but back east, yeah, no, I didn't see it all that much because I was not around that
Yeah, yeah,
population.
yeah.
So, but yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that gift of seeing those two perspectives of how we view seniors, we'll call them, and how we view them here. But I do want to get back to the menopause. I know you have so much life wisdom, and you started out in this country, born of Indian parents, and you came here. Can you just give us a really short synopsis of your journey? And was it easy? Was it something that you had to step into with maybe some trepidation, or did you just go boldly into it? Or just share if you would, please.
I've been my joke is that I must have been a gypsy in a previous life. I love to wander. That has been something, whether I'm wandering in my local space or I'm wandering across the planet. Wandering to me is, it makes me come alive. Because I get to see different things that feed my curiosity. I'm an only child. I am full of curiosity. And this extends to anything, whether it's learning about astronomy or how the human body works, or why does a dish have this ingredient and not that. So it extends to, what people click and why do they do things in their culture this
Mm-hmm.
way. And so, just I have always had a natural curiosity. And so I think wandering just feeds that curiosity. And so that's my happiest place.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in Kuwait, I went through my schooling in Kuwait, and in the summers I would go spend time with my grandparents in India. So I'm multilingual,
I bet.
and got to see different aspects because Kuwait is a really wealthy country with hardly any people in it. And then you go to
Mm.
India, which is a very populous country. There is no such thing as personal space ever. And there is a good amount of poverty depending on where you are. And one of the things that I love about my upbringing in India is the ability to share what I have with those that are not as fortunate. And it's just so normal in my family that I just don't know how not to give, right? So it becomes sort of like that mentality of helping and serving and all this other stuff. So at the end of my high school, my dad asked me where I wanted to go, and he gave me a choice of going to India, to the UK where I have family, and to the US where I knew nobody. And
Wow.
of course, I picked the US.
Of
And my
course.
only 18-year-old logic was, I want to go to the US because there's no relatives. Nobody's going to keep an eye on me. Nobody's going to keep tabs on me. And on Easter or Christmas, nobody's going to be like, oh, she didn't come to my house. I can do whatever I want. And so I told my dad, I said, I want to go somewhere where I don't have any kind of obligations or expectations of me. I just want to go where I can be who I need to be. And I don't know
Hmm.
whether that's 18-year-old wisdom or 18-year-old stupidity. I don't know. But either way, it worked out. I came here and um, I have traveled over half of the US. And so I've seen so many different cultures, perspectives, ways of life, um, different thoughts on maybe the same topic. Doesn't matter if the topic is cooking or community affairs or whatever it is, or just how locally, how people really adjust to whatever they're doing.
Hmm.
And it's been also what really fills me with awe is the size of this country,
Hmm.
right? Because I lived in Texas when I came here.
Oh.
In Texas, you could drive for a day and still be in Texas. So the size of the country, because when you go across, whether it's Europe or um, Asia, we don't have any countries that big. Now, maybe
Hmm.
Russia,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
but in South, the below Russia, really, we
Hmm.
don't have anything that big.
Hmm.
And so sometimes when people, make sort of broad stroked comments about the US, I'm like, you do know it is a ginormous country. So, of course, the New Yorkers are completely different than
Mm.
people from Arizona, for example.
Right, right.
Like they might as well be two countries. So I think that has allowed me to speak with a certain amount of grace, where it could have been judgmental. And so I feel that coming into my work world, I embraced American culture completely, just because I was immersed in it. And I believe
Hmm.
in immersing in the culture of the country you're in, rather than trying to find your people only. Me
Mm.
hanging only out only with the
Yeah,
Indians or people from Kuwait. I was like,
yeah.
I can go back to India for the Indians, right?
Hmm.
I don't
Hmm.
have to go seek them out. So I wanted to be immersed. And no matter which country I'm in, I like to immerse in the culture. I will learn the words, the local words, like at least good morning or thank
Hmm.
you, please, or um, I will do that. And I find that, in my younger years, I did the same thing as what Americans do, which is grind and climb that corporate
Mm.
ladder and put myself in front row of burnout. And so I also happened to find massage therapy at the same time. My corporate life was in human resources. And so I had two careers. I burned out not because of the two careers, I burned out because of being in an environment where I wasn't living in my values. I had abandoned my
Mm.
values and was chasing anyone and everyone that could promise me a rise to the top.
Mm.
And a funny thing happens when you don't follow your values. It shows in your health.
Oh, wow.
And when you suppress certain emotions, certain aspects of you that are not expressed, when you feel that resentment or frustration because you had to put your dream aside to feed somebody else's
Yeah,
agenda or
yeah.
dream, it feeds into your health profile. I
Mm.
saw it in my parents. I didn't realize how insidious it was that it creeped into mine. And so while it was a very painful experience, it allowed me to learn a lot of things about values, about who I was. it helped me, even though I did not know at the time. It took about 19 years and my consistent evolution to realize, when I worked in the space of grief as a grief
Mm.
wellness coach, not a grief coach, not a grief counselor, I realized how much grief was tied into the burnout and all the losses I
Mm.
had had.
Wow.
And so coming into menopause and understanding the grief that isn't either dealt with, or the new grief that comes with menopause,
Mm.
are realities that women still don't want to talk about.
Wow.
So it's been
Lots,
a journey.
lots to unpack there. First of all, when you said you like to immerse yourself in a culture, you really did. You got the whole experience, the whole up to burnout.
Yes, yes, I did. Yeah. From a health perspective, as well as, just a geographical perspective. So,
Mm.
yeah, because at the time of my burnout, I was in New York, which is very conducive to burnout.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
In New
Ooh.
York City area, work life. So that is very conducive. Like, if you were doing something in some of the slower states, I don't know. I don't, the pace just, and I've lived in the South, so I do know the slower pace. And it drove me crazy when I
Oh,
moved from New York.
I bet. What an adjustment, huh? And I love this whole, if you're not living in your values, which I think is really important as well. And a lot of us don't know our values. So it's
Mm,
a great practice, a great activity to actually put some thought into that, just to at least be able to articulate them. I know when
mm,
I did that exercise years ago, I was like, whoa, like some of them I understood very clearly, and others, it took me some time to get there. But now I try to line up with that. But you're right. I think people's stress levels rise when they're not in alignment with their values. So their workspace, what their career is, could just be leading them to burnout because it's not in line with their values and they're not even realizing it.
right, right. And these types of things are very subtle. Now, I will tell you
Mhm.
that being a massage therapist and being really fluent in the language of the body through touch, I have worked with a lot of emotion. So I don't just, when I'm working with a client, I'm not just saying, oh, well, this muscle feels tight.
Mhm.
I will ask them a lot of questions, and my clients, will say, we've never been questioned this way before. But what I'm trying to get to is it a muscle dysfunction based on posture, for example,
Mhm.
slouching at the desk? Is it a muscle structure based on injury because maybe you had a certain surgery or removal of a
Mhm.
part or whatever?
Mhm. Yeah.
Is it a muscle dysfunction based on overcompensation because you're sitting at the computer all day, or you are maybe like an Amazon delivery person and you're lifting things all day, right?
Mhm.
So there are different strains that we do not reverse on a daily basis. We consistently put ourselves in a strain position, and
Yeah.
then that creates dysfunction. But one of the most important and absolutely overlooked is emotional
Mhm.
compensation, because our emotions determine how we hold our bodies. So, for example, if you see
Mhm.
someone who's really happy, they're more open and outward. If you see someone who's grieving, they're more inward and more hunched, for example, right? They're more like this because they're not, or someone who's
Mhm.
feeling um, anger is really body tense, jaw clenched, maybe, consistently a redness of the face. In So I watch these things and I ask these questions, because when I'm working with the tissue, I watch how the emotion releases and the tissue softens, or the dysfunction reverses itself.
Mhm.
but there's only so much I can do in 60 minutes or 90 minutes. So my clients get this understanding of their biology, of their emotion health, and then they get a plan that helps them keep that in perspective while they understand why they're doing the movements they're doing. Because giving someone a regimen is like a prescription.
Mm-hmm.
Telling someone not to have sugar without giving them a method doesn't go anywhere. It crashes
Yeah.
and burns.
Yep.
And so it's the same with massage. So understanding how people feel emotionally was a tremendous, especially in the body, was a tremendous foundation for my work with grief, designing grief massage, creating grief wellness plans, um, and also coming into menopause and looking at women who have who are having a hard time with their symptoms, with their transitional symptoms, and get frustrated because their emotional health has not been streamlined and given a structure. So they're all over the place with their emotions. They're all over the place with their biology. They don't know what's going on. And imagine you wouldn't want to be caught in a big train station like Grand Central in New York, not knowing where your train is.
Right. Right. Agreed.
And that is exactly the feeling because when I look at Grand Central or in Chicago, I look at Union Station, there's like people coming, going up and down and, like finding their way, not finding their way. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
experience of menopause. But when you have structures and you're streamlined, you know exactly, regardless of the crazy, you know you're looking for hall number 2, gate number 5,
Mm-hmm.
and you are focused on hall number 2,
Yeah.
gate number 5, just like the airport,
I was just
right?
gonna say that. Yeah.
Just like the airport. So, what I bring to the table is helping people understand their structures, understand how to put them in place so that they are headed to the right destination that is perfect for their health.
Mm. Oh, you've talked about so many things just in the last couple minutes. I've never heard of emotional compensation until you
Mm,
said it. And I remember when I first learned that our tissues hold emotions, because we didn't talk about emotions when I was growing up. It was just not something
mhm.
that we addressed. No doctor ever addressed it with me or my family that I know of. And so when I first heard that, it was hard for me to believe. And so I appreciate what you do, and I think it's more acceptable now to understand that. But when I first heard it, like
Mhm.
it was like shocking to me. Like, how
And
can that
also,
be?
if you grew up in a generation, right, within the 10 to 15 years of hearing your parents say, "I'll give you something to cry
Yeah,
about," right?
exactly. Yep, yep, yep.
Or and I see this now. I have worked with, Chicago Police Department, for example, and I have worked with veterans, for example, when they come in for
Mm,
massage, right?
mm,
And that stiff upper lip that is determined by their trade,
yeah.
um, it doesn't serve them well because it is, it's understandable that you have the emotional containment while you're in the role.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
when you are not in the role and you are still in that training, it doesn't bode well for your health profile. And so this is why we see people who use this is how I was raised, this is who I
Mm-hmm.
am,
Mm-hmm.
without the ability to flow through their emotions and be um, em empathic when it's needed, or be controlled when it's needed. That flexibility, that muscle, the emotional muscle, is highly underdeveloped.
Oh, for sure. At least again in our culture here in the States.
Yeah.
I don't know how it is in the your other side of
It's
the
different all over. It's different. Yeah.
Mhm. Wow. So yeah, that is big, huge, and I'm so grateful that things have changed since I was a young person. You know, emotions are something that are now spoken about and talked about, and people address and they get help to deal with their emotions. But yeah, so things are changing for the better. And I know I could just talk for another half hour with you, but I know we have to wrap it up here. But I you call yourself a grief wellness coach. Can you explain that just a little bit before we sign off?
Yes, I am a grief, or part one of my roles is a grief wellness coach. And what that means is I am a health coach and I help those who have experienced loss not lose their health in the bargain. So, whether it is helping them with a food plan that sustains their body in the most stressful time, whether they are not sleeping and helping them get back to where they're sleeping, helping them not have the strains in their body from positions of grief, the postures of grief,
Mm-hmm.
or even holding emotions within instead of expressing them correctly. So I create wellness plans so that health can stay, so health can be sustained through loss events.
I love that because you don't see those words together, grief and wellness, you know,
Yes.
like
And
they're separate typically.
I haven't met anybody that uses that. It is something that, I've had to educate a lot of people on what it is that I do. And as of last year, when I transitioned into becoming a menopause coaching specialist, really what I did was it came in through the door of grief and understanding the grief that women experience in menopause for so many reasons, many, many reasons. Um, and being able to now create wellness plans that help them manage that, manage hormonal transitions, still manage sleep, which is the most important thing in menopause, and help them prepare, because it's like riding a bike. If you know how to do it now, it doesn't matter which decade. You just kind of tweak and,
Hmm.
upgrade a
Hmm.
little bit. But
Yeah.
for the most part, the framework stays the same.
Wow. Anyone who connects with you will be very lucky to get all of your wisdom and your lived experience.
Thank you.
There's so much here that you offered, and I am so grateful to you. And I hope our listeners understood the value you bring. How can people get a hold of you if they want to connect in?
The best way to reach me is to connect with me on LinkedIn. And if LinkedIn is not your cup of tea, I do have a way to contact through my website. It is actually under construction right now, but there is still a space that you can send me a message or find out how to connect with me further.
All right, great. And we will include those links here with this recording. So you'll be able to just to go there and find the information you need to connect with you, Merelda. So thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for what you've brought us today. Thank you for your insights. Thank you for what you're doing out there in the world. I
Thank
think
you.
it's much needed.
Thank you.
So
Looking forward to helping women.
we appreciate that. Thank you, everybody, for listening in. Thank you, Merelda. And oops, I almost forgot my little thing. I always have to, I put it here right by me and I still forget to put it out there. All right, my friend. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll see you guys the next time. Bye bye.